Clear Lake City Council of Monday, September 26, 2022 shall come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dana, seconded by Mark. We approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried to new business. A, Surf District Destination Iowa Placemaking Grant Application. Review, Mr. Flory. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Just got to take a quick look at the agenda here, and then I want to kind of talk about the Creative Placemaking Program application. So in your packet tonight, you have a number of items related to this matter. First item, it's an orange sheet there in your packet, is a resolution to approve a submittal of an application to the Iowa Department of Economic Development Authority for the Creative Placemaking Grant Program. The blue sheet that follows that is a resolution authorizing a letter of intent and confirming support of the Surf District Placemaking Grant application to be filed by the city and the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum with the Iowa Economic Development Authority. The yellow sheets that follow that, a copy of the letter of intent that would be entered into between the City of Clear Lake and the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum for the project. After that, the lighter tan sheet there is an engagement letter with Dorsey and Whitney, who handles these economic development related matters for the city, and that identifies the fees for their services related to this project as it would continue to go forward. Would be they provide a range of between $75,000 to $125,000. Just hard at this point to kind of pin that down, but that's the range that they've supplied for the purposes of that engagement letter. And then also on the purple sheets are a financial services agreement with Piper Sandler for financial services related to the eventual placement of bonds for this project and structuring financial analysis related to various components, particularly the hotel. And that is for a 0.3% of the gross proceeds of the amount of securities that would be issued on this project, not to be less than $25,000. So, just in terms of some review remarks, boy, to say it's been a whirlwind would be an understatement. You know, we've been going at this pretty intensely for about the last 2 months, maybe a little bit better than that. So I think first and foremost, before anything else, I just want to express my sincere thank you to the council for your confidence and your stewardship and trust in the city staff in working on this project and getting it to the where we are today. And I'm very grateful for that. You know, without your support, none of these things happen. I think the last time I kind of made a statement like that, we were breaking the ground, or excuse me, cutting the ribbon on the McKesson project. And, you know, I think, again, without your support, these kinds of neat economic development opportunities just don't happen. So thanks again, appreciate it very, very much. So again, I think in the course of about 70 days here, we've put together, I think, a remarkable amount of work. When this announcement was made, we started having some preliminary conversations with the State Department of Economic Development even prior to when the grant application program guidelines had been issued. That was on July 21st. We'd actually had a few conversations with representatives at the state just prior to that, kind of seeing what might happen in terms of this future placemaking grant opportunity, so we could start kind of hitting the ground with both feet running on this one. So again, in the course of roughly 70 days, we've put together, you know, we've hired RDG to come in and update the Surf District visioning plan that was prepared back in 2008. So that was a big undertaking to update that. We completed a hotel feasibility study with Paytech and Associates, again, the same firm that did the hotel feasibility study for the Marriott project out on the interstate. And we've done what I think is just a remarkable job here working with our partners in all forms of stakeholders, as the Chamber, Economic Development Corporation, now Landscape Partners, RDG, bond counsel, financial advisors, hotel study, again, the nonprofit organization, sort of ballroom ownership. So many different people have had some involvement in helping get this project to where it is. So I can't say just thanks enough to all those people. Everyone has had a great role in helping us get this project to where it is today, which I think is, again, a real pivotal moment for where we're at. And I mentioned that previously on these kinds of projects. I remember when the superintendent and one of the board members came to us on the Wellness Center project, and I had mentioned at that time that was really when Nelson and I had the conversation, and they were asking where we would be at with respect to operating a wellness center and this partnership that they had kind of foreseen in that. And we had indicated to them that we were very positive about that and wanted to move forward. I had said to Nelson at the time that was a pivotal moment for us, because although there were many, many things that needed to happen subsequent to that, all of those things fall back to that moment, because we could have taken a different direction and then those things would not have happened after that. So I think we're at another one of those pivotal moments here with this application for the SURF district. There's 1,000 more steps to come, but I think someday, these things are always easy to analyze when you look from the end backwards to the beginning, and I think that really kind of blurs the difficulty in putting together some of these kinds of projects. It's very complicated, very complex, but I think someday when, I hope, when people are looking back and see the success of these projects, they'll understand that it was not that easy. And again, looking at it from the end backwards just sort of obscures that difficulty in putting them together. So again, I think it's like the example I mentioned with McKesson. I can also remember, the North 32nd Street project, and when we were starting on that. And I remember Mike had a good comment at that meeting when we were taking a chance on paving a gravel road essentially to nowhere. I'm sure you remember that night. And that was an expensive project, and we had good dialogue here from the podium in the dais about the opportunities that could lay in the future for that, but they would not happen unless we made that investment in the infrastructure, the street, the water, the sewer, extending it out. Again, at the time, it seems like risky business, and it is, because there was nothing there, and it was a substantial, few $1 million to be invested in a gravel road that essentially went almost nowhere. But that led to the multi-million-dollar Old Dominion project, which led to a Marriott hotel project, which led to what is going to be a new restaurant south of the Marriott. So again, collectively, you've got about $25, $26 million in investment out there, and a lot more opportunity to come. But if the council hadn't taken that initiative and that leap of faith, those things would not have happened. So, and I think again, we're kind of at that moment here again with the application that we would be submitting for this placemaking program. So I do want to kind of go through the application just a little bit. I think some, and my compliments to Planscape Partners, Ron and Kathy here this evening, done an absolute, really, I think, a bang-up job helping us put this application together. And likewise to RDG for their help in supplying, illustrations, graphics, a narrative for the application, cost estimates, and so forth. So I think we've really done a nice job putting together a really good team here. So I do want to just take a moment to kind of go through some of the pieces of the placemaking grant application that we'll be submitting this Friday. Of course, that's due, so thanks again for the special meeting tonight. We just simply had to have it. I, at some point, thought we might have to have another special meeting later in the week. So didn't envision this going in any sooner than probably noon on Friday, September 30th. So it's just going to be that tight of a turnaround to complete this whole process. So again, we'll just kind of take a walk through. I think you've all got a copy of the application up there. Just kind of want to start on the very first page here where the state introduces the concept of the placemaking program itself. And in that, they describe placemaking is about creating attractive and memorable places for people to live and work through transformational projects that leverage a local community in its assets and improve the experience for visitors and residents. So we talked about that so many times, about the opportunity for a transformational project here in the Surf District. And when we started back in 2008 with the original Surf District plan, I think that was the first time we really started tossing around, if you will, the designation of the Surf District, and started visioning and thinking about bigger improvements that would come incrementally in over the scope of a number of years within that district. So I think that was really the first time we started looking at improvements in the district, calling it the Surf District. But again, the key words I think here are community assets. And what we're attempting to do here is, I think we talked about this at 2 previous council meetings, leveraging, other than people, our 2 greatest assets, of course, here are natural, the lake, and man-made, the historic Surf Ballroom. So we're taking the opportunity to leverage both of those assets as part of this application to create a transformational space here in the Surf District. The fund assists in the development of regionally significant quality of life projects. And for Clear Lake, of course, the Surf District is internationally renowned, and we have visitors from all over the Midwest, all over the country, and even internationally here. So I think that resonates well with the intent of what the state is seeking with this project. Continuing down just a little bit further, the placemaking fund qualifications. Again, we've looked at cities will develop cumulative proposal projects. Those consist of public and private development projects in the emerging area. A series of development projects must include a substantial regional, statewide economic impact and include at least 1 signature project. So I think, again, the key words as we kind of dissect this application there are, it's not limited to just a public project. So we could not just simply submit city-owned buildings or things like that we want to do. It has to be both a combination of public facilities, public improvements, but also private development as well. So we have to find the right combination of public and private improvements to make this application competitive. Just a little bit further down, again, the cumulative proposal, again, talks about the public and private development projects to be included, and it says a little bit later there, private developments may include, but are not limited to, and you can see the very first one identified is hotel. And so the linchpin cornerstone of our project in the Surf District is, of course, the reimagined Oaks Hotel, even though that is not a component that is eligible for place-making funding. It is the private investment that is sought after in the grant application. So public projects may include, but are not limited to, public art, which we intend to have a great deal of. I think as we've shown the PowerPoint presentation previously, we've shown a number of placeholder art features in the scope of a 70-day time frame. We really can't identify with specificity the type of art features and sculptures that we would want to have within the Surf District. There's just not enough time. I routinely say we took about 9 months designing street light pole banners. We're not going to be able to develop with specificity the type of art structures and interactive art features within a period of a little over 2 months. So again, they call for public art being a significant component of the public projects, as well as waterfront improvements, park improvements, cultural venues. So when we talk about a little bit later on here, the Music Enrichment Center, obviously that is a cultural venue. Let's promise not to go over all 25 pages of this individually. So, but we're going to work through it a little more. So we'll go on to the next page there at the top. The proposal must increase the diversity, and actually I really like this phrase because when I describe Clear Lake to people who are not from here and what our strengths are as a community, this has every single one of them. I always describe we're a community of art, culture, recreation, and entertainment. And if you read that next statement, the proposal must increase the diversity of art, culture, recreation, entertainment, and educational activities available within the state. Certainly, the MEC, the Music Enrichment Center, would fulfill that educational component that they're adding to that mix. The next, we'll skip down one here, applicants must be able to demonstrate meaningful engagement with the community and stakeholders in the planning process. I'm particularly proud of the involvement that we've had with others in this. This is not just a city-driven project. We've had significant participation with other stakeholders in the community. I can simply not say enough for the nonprofit, the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum. Without them, we would not have a project. We've had support from NIAC, the Chamber, Economic Development Corporation, One Vision, and the list goes on and on. So happy, very happy with the amount of positive, meaningful public support that we've been able to garner through our engagement process as we work to develop this application. Working the way down just a little bit further, just want to call attention to the minimum aggregate cost for applicants' projects. So we obviously fall within that population parameter of between 5 and 20,000. So we would have to have a minimum aggregate cost of not less than $5 million based on that. And I'm going to back up just for a moment because I believe when we first started talking with the representatives at the State Department of Economic Development, there was going to be a pot of somewhere around $20 million designated to this fund. And they were looking at probably funding 2, maybe 3 projects from that pool of resources. So going to be a competitive process, so we have to develop the very best application we can to compete for these dollars that are available here. A little bit further down, the state indicates that they'll accept just a single round of applications, and that those are due on September 30th of this year, so this Friday. They'll be scored by an appointed scoring committee and ultimately awarded by the director of the authority, which would be Debbie Durham, the director of the Department of Economic Development. A little bit further down, just want to call attention to a few highlights here. Grant recipients, I just point out that eligible projects need to be fully completed by June 30th of 2026. So these funds that the state has appropriated to this particular program and to some of the other programs that are akin to this all come from the American Rescue Plan Act, and there's the state local fiscal recovery fund that was funded through those dollars. So that's the reason for the very compressed window for the applications to be submitted. Probably a pretty quick turnaround on review. I'm anticipating that the review will probably take place this fall, and then final decision probably made in sometime prior to December, and that we would be notified in December whether or not we were going to receive these funds. So again, a pretty quick turnaround, but that's all related to the fact that there are conditions imposed by federal law and regulation requiring the funds to be spent and allocated at certain times. So, and of course, as part of these grant programs, there's always a number of audit requirements and other pieces of federal and state legislation that enacts that you have to comply with. So if you're not in the government business, when you look at those seem to be pretty daunting, but those are things that we're used to complying with pretty frequently when we receive a federal award for a project. So then on page 3, again, just kind of continuing down just a little bit further, I just want to point out it's a failure to start construction on the project within 12 months of the award may result in a reduction or termination of funding. I won't go any further than that. So they're paying, I think, a lot stricter attention on when projects have to be completed. So that would be the reason for that. So a little bit further down in terms of scoring criteria, again on page 3, I just want to point out demonstrating economic impact relative to the amount of financial assistance requested, promote and advance a sense of place. These are some of the bullet points that caught my attention. A greater diversity in and leveraging of funding sources. Does the proposal include investment by the city, county, region, and private funding sources? So just once again want to emphasize there that a private project is critical to being a component of this application. Without a private component, there isn't an application. So the next sheet is just kind of the cover sheet that identifies the city as the applicant, the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum as the co-applicant. It indicates that the total cost of the signature projects that are submitted by the city are just under $11 million, so $10,924,000. Of that, we are requesting 40% reimbursement from the state, which equals $4,370,000. Again, the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum is a co-applicant with the city on the project. In terms of the next page, page 5, and just want to read some of this because I thought Kathy in particular did a really nice job framing some of the language on this, so I want to give her credit and pay attention to some of this. So please provide an overview of the proposed cumulative proposal, what areas being transformed by the proposal, and how. And I want to go down to that second paragraph on your page 8, and it says, knowing the visitors are attracted to the surf ballroom from across the globe, City of Clear Lake began the redevelopment, as I mentioned, of the surf district in 2008. And I appreciate her pointing out, for the purpose of this application, Mike and Nelson were both on the council when we did that project on North Shore Drive, but we had purchased the abandoned business, the North Shore Amico at that time, and then transformed that into what you see today, the Three Stars Plaza. So the former gas station's now Three Stars Plaza, which of course is an interactive tribute that honors the 3 artists in the final performance at the Surf Ballroom. Unlike any other monument in the world, the park features a 15-foot spindle designed to represent a record player with 3 records on top. State of Iowa Great Places, you'll recall, we had submitted a grant application to the State of Iowa Great Places program, and the Surf District was named an Iowa Great Place a few years back. But that grant also allowed us to add an interactive feature to that art feature there at Three Stars Plaza. So people can hear the audio features and the story of the surf and listen to snippets of their favorite song, learn about the legacy of the icon performers and how that shaped the music industry. So, and of course, as you know, at night, the structure is illuminated in the blue neon, so subtle reminder that the music lives on in Clear Lake. Continuing down, you'll remember, many of you as well, continue on with the Surf District. And I should say, I want to thank Mike and Nelson again for their vision on that. I remember vividly those council meetings where we talked about, here we have, at that time, the Surf Ballroom was not on the National Register and was not a National Historic Landmark, and I don't believe was in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame either at that time. But we knew we had a blighted structure very close by what was a very important community tourism asset to us. And so kudos to these guys in particular for having the initiative to acquire that and redevelop it as they have. So, but we've continued on with that. In 2010, we made some extensive streetscape improvements to Buddy Holly Place and redeveloping that area. We also acquired a parcel there just south of the railroad tracks to be used at some point, which is, I think now, for a future art sculpture feature as you enter the district there on the west side, again, just south of the railroad tracks. So just a little bit further down, just some narrative here. The surf sits on a block of almost 4 acres. The dream inspired here by our application envisions a transformational proposal, including new signature projects throughout this 10-block area, gateway features from the highway into the district, distinct roadway features along Buddy Holly Drive and North Shore Drive, and a long-awaited promenade pathway to connect the surf district to the lake and the Music Enrichment Center. If we go on to the next page, probably that very first full paragraph, in addition to the public investments, as noted above, the cumulative proposal includes a private sector redevelopment project that will use the 0.68-acre site located at 10 Allens Alley, 110 7th Avenue North, to replace the the really dilapidated, aging Hilltop Motel with a much more modern boutique-type hotel at that location. Hilltop has been purchased, and a new 45-room hotel would be reimagined. The Oaks Hotel would be reimagined at this site based on the historic photos that we have of the Oaks Hotel, which I think everyone knows was built at that location in 1893 and then later burned 100 years ago in 1922. So again, that the legacy and the heritage of that hotel at one time was just amazing. So trying to recreate something like that here in the 21st century is no small task, to say the least. So. In 2022, the city commissioned a market feasibility study, as I mentioned, from Paytech Hospitality in Wisconsin, and we asked specifically for the analysis to be on, we had two models, a 60-room hotel and a 45-room boutique hotel. So that hotel study was complete. Again, the hotel site west of the Surf, well-positioned in relationship to the Surf District, the downtown, the Surf Ballroom, not very walkable, obviously, to the city beach. Splash pad, I think it's about 7 blocks away. And I think in summary, the statement here, I think, says a lot. The conclusion of the Paytech report is the competitive location would be a very good location for the proposed hotel. The first phase of the cumulative plan for the hotel, music enrichment center, and public improvements that's the first phase that would be built. Future phases would include other large-scale type projects, such as acquiring property and replacing existing buildings, the southeast corner of the Surf Block with green space, and a lighthouse visitor center on the north parcel. And those are all shown in the conceptual drawings that are going to be submitted in with the grant, along with cumulative cost estimates for those future phases of the project. Those are not part of this phase, but hopefully at some point in the future, those could be part of a further redevelopment of the Surf Ballroom. In terms of the next question, just working my way down here a little further, because I think some of these are important, describe how the proposal promotes a sense of place, and that's really the genesis of this entire placemaking application process, is creating that sense of place. And the narrative, again, the residents and visitors often reflect on locations in town where special memories are created. These are spaces where a town's strong sense of place flourishes, and specifically referencing like the downtown, the city park, and the bandshell and community festivals and those kinds of things. I think that could be said about a lot of communities, have those kinds of things. Many communities have a quaint, charming downtown. Many communities have a bandshell in a city park, and many communities have festivals. So we have all of those things, and we're proud of those things, but there are very few communities that have a lake that we have, and have one of only 27 National Historic Landmarks, the Surf Ballroom. And when we had talked with Debbie Durham very early on in this process, she had kind of described this placemaking grant as something that you couldn't duplicate in some other community. So when you look at some of these other projects and maybe some of the other funding buckets that are being done, trails and those kinds of things, ball fields, those can be done pretty much anywhere. But you can't, there's only one community that has Clear Lake, and there's only one community that has the Surf Ballroom. So I think that for us is something that we can certainly boast about, that other communities just don't have that. They can create other opportunities, but again, building on our greatest natural asset and our greatest man-made asset, that is what we're attempting to do here with this application. Maybe skipping ahead mercifully to page 10. On the cumulative proposal, I'm just going to kind of walk through this one a little bit. Projects, the signature projects, we've kind of been talking about those. The gateway and streetscape component, we have put a tentative preliminary estimated budget at just north of $3 million for the gateway streetscape improvements to Buddy Holly Place and North Shore Drive. The waterfront connection, we've got a preliminary budget there at just under $1.4 million. And the Music Enrichment Center, we have a preliminary budget established there of $6.5 million. So that brings the total value of our signature projects, as I mentioned earlier, to just under $11 million. And then you can see the other support projects, some of which, you know, the Oaks Hotel, of course, phase one would be obviously ready to begin immediately. We have an estimated value there of $10 million. Then the other projects that would come in future subsequent phases, the Lighthouse Visitor Center, estimated $4.3 million, and the mixed-use development that could occur on the east side of Buddy Holly, something along the lines of what maybe we were able to do years ago down across from City Park, north of the Chamber, you know, that kind of a townhome kind of project, estimated around a $10 million project. So looking long-term vision here at the Surf District, what we have penciled out for our visioning process would be a cumulative project over a multi-phases of north of $35 million in the district. So once again, I mentioned the grant request is 40% of those phase one projects, excluding the Oaks Hotel. So the grant request would be in the amount of $4,370,000. Again, I've talked about the Surf District and North Shore Drive and the placemaking art features. City intends to add more public art to Buddy Holly Drive along North Shore Drive, which of course the major east-west street through, and of course the Buddy Holly being the north-south street. So again, these would be styled to complement the unique futuristic like public art structure at Three Stars Plaza, but for the time being, we just have simple placeholder sculptures put in there. And again, if we're awarded the funding, then we'll do justice to that process of evaluating what kind of public art we want to put in there. So. The waterfront component of the application, I think, is very significant. I know several of you up there are historians and are well-versed on the history of the surf ballroom, but in 1933, the original surf, of course, was built on the shores of Clear Lake. Its connection to the lake was important, with the rooftop garden for dancing outdoors, the large windows facing the lake, and the boardwalk leading to the docks. Of course, currently, there is no immediate public connection between the surf and the waterfront. And present time, you can only see the lake by kind of peering through some of the trees there between those houses on North Shore Drive. So this plan and the associated budget envision using the Fox House Yard for access. The promenade and pavilion would contain public art related to the musical heritage of the Surf District. City-owned and maintained floating dock with boat slips would connect to the Fox House property and the promenade. The dock would provide quick pickup and drop-off for boaters and have temporary mooring available. Boaters can park in one of the short-term boat slips, enjoy the lake. And then also, I think another important component of this would be integration potentially with the Lady of the Lake at that location, so building that into their excursion opportunities there. I think it's another exciting opportunity. I also think the opportunity to open up access to the lake there for ADA is very significant for us, and we embrace that opportunity, of course. So I think that's will do well for our application. Right now, obviously, that's not available in that location. So. The Music Enrichment Center, just want to talk a little about that. City wishes to help expand the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum Music Enrichment Center, referred to that as the MEC. The MEC is dedicated to providing hands-on, lifelong learning opportunities to students of all ages and abilities throughout the greater North Iowa area and brings regional people to the Music Enrichment Center. Besides sharing the story of Buddy Holly and his fellow artists, the MEC creates a relevant free curriculum to assist schools and inspire the next generation that the music lives on. The MEC hosts teachers who offer music lessons. In addition, the MEC organizes and coordinates school field trips, special events, programming for pre-K to 12th grade. Another attachment about program that is provided to people of all ages is included. The North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum Strategic Plan for 2023 is to expand offerings and outreach to rural communities. And obviously more space is needed to accomplish their goals than what they have currently on the property they have on the west side of Buddy Holly Place. So the proposal would be for the city to own the Music Enrichment Center and lease it to the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum, make the site ready for a new music enrichment building. 2 properties will be acquired. Current MEC purchased in 2017 is located at 509 Buddy Holly Drive. The new MEC would be located west of the Surf Ballroom and replace the small buildings on the east side of the block. The new MEC is intended to be approximately 10,000 square foot, 2-story mixed-use building, in the architectural Art Deco style reminiscent of the original Surf Ballroom back in 1933. Again, be on the same block west of the Surf and across the street east of Three Stars Plaza. There'll be dressing rooms for performers, kitchen space, bathroom, large hospitality space that can be subdivided, conference room, visitor center, ticket office. Classes can be offered at this location. So maybe going down a little bit further, once the IEDA award is made, the conceptual design would be refined and construction drawings would then be developed for bidding of the project. Working our way through a little further on page 13 on the stakeholder involvement process. Again, I mentioned that earlier, kind of won't go into that too much more, but again, I'm particularly proud of the involvement that we've had with our stakeholders in helping develop this vision. And I just want to point out that it's really a process that we've been engaged in, I think, since 2008 when the original Surf District plan was developed, and that we've continued on incrementally over the time, just adding new pieces to it as we go, even like the alley improvement projects that we've talked about. So, you know, I think a year or so ago we did the alley that is located between 7th Avenue North and 6th Avenue North, just east of Buddy Holly Place, and then we have another one on the docket for next year, I believe. So again, continuing to make improvements within the Surf District. So. In particular, on page 14 at the bottom, talking about maybe how does the proposal incorporate other state priorities, in particular those related to water quality, broadband, rural development, and so forth. The project seizes on and exemplifies the opportunities and abilities of small town to be bold, and I think Bennett mentioned that at one of the previous council meetings. So I think this is really a bold initiative on the part of the city and the nonprofit and the community in general to seize on the unique assets that we have. But the balancing test there is also to do that while simultaneously maintaining the small town charm and character that we have. So. Also, I think in this particular example, we identify here that we build the work that we're doing today, and I know Mike and Nelson, I think Bennett were, when Creighton and I gave a presentation at Noon Lions, building on the history and legacy of the previous generations that have been involved with efforts to embrace our community's musical legacy and preserve the heritage of the Surf Ballroom. So several gentlemen have been instrumental in making that happen. Some are still living today, and so I think that's very important to point that out. I think maybe just moving on to page 16 a little bit. I think I've mentioned this at previous council meetings. Again, just kind of the accolades of the Surf Ballroom. Obviously a major tourism driver here for the community and the number of events that it hosts per year. But I do want to point out again the designation on the Historic Rock and Roll, the Hall of Fame designation, as well as the National Historic Landmark by the National Park Service. I was talking to a gentleman today about this project. I mentioned, again, in the state of Iowa, there are only 27 properties that are on the National Historic Landmark list, and this is one of them. And as I think Nelson has mentioned numerous times, that puts you on the same plateau as something like a Gettysburg, for example. So there are, I think, around 2,000 properties that are in the National Register of Historic Places. We're attempting to place our seawall project on that list as well, but only 27 in the state, and I think there are only about 2,000 nationwide. So we have made them, the folks in Des Moines, keenly aware of that, and if they were not already. So. You know, I think we had mentioned previously, when we look at the Surf District, it's starting to show some wear, maybe looking a little tired in some cases and showing some signs of some disinvestment, if you will. So I think one of the drivers here is to transform that district and, again, do the things that we can in terms of building up a district that will ensure that the Surf Ballroom is sustainable and resilient well into the future. And I think we do that by being aggressive and bold with some of these initiatives that we're talking about here tonight. A little bit further down on that page, the author of the grant here talks a little bit further about the Frank Lloyd Wright designed historic park hotel in Mason City, and I know they had both worked on that project as well. But in Paytech study, they had indicated that, like that hotel, they think the Oaks will achieve a high market penetration and will attract guests nationally and internationally, of course, due to the uniqueness and proximity to the surf ballroom and other Clear Lake attractions. And so I have given that example when we talk about a hotel that is being owned and operated by a nonprofit corporation. We don't have to look too far. The Park Inn Hotel in Mason City, of course, is owned by the 501c3 corporation right on the park. So a little bit smaller than what the Oaks Hotel would be here, but very much the same kind of paradigm there. Operated by a third-party hotel manager. I think it used to be operated by Thompson Properties for a long time, and I think there's a new firm that specializes in boutique hotels out of Atlanta that has a number of them up and down the East Coast that is the third-party operator of the hotel, the Park Inn Hotel now. So. Again, the Paytech study talked quite a bit, and we reviewed this. I think Creighton reviewed this one meeting here maybe a couple months ago when the study was completed by Paytech. Predicts that the room rental revenue, so 2024 would be the anticipated year of opening for the Oaks Hotel. Revenues anticipated at just under $1 million, increasing to nearly $2 million in 2026 when the hotel would reach its period of stabilization. The city's 7% hotel motel tax, based on these assumptions, we would estimate generate about $160,000 in additional revenues to the city, as well as property tax revenues of approximately $234,000. And I want to point out here towards the bottom of this sheet, and I'm getting close to being done, I promise, there's a kind of an economic impact analysis extrapolation here, if you will, towards the bottom of this sheet. And it indicates that, talking about the impact of the Oaks Hotel, for approximately every $2 million of hotel room revenue, there would be about $4.4 million of spending realized in Clear Lake. And I talked to a few of you in the past about some communities get involved in convention centers and build those and I've listened to some really good economists give talks about those. One managed the one in Branson and McCormick Place in Chicago, and they were talking about they had hit the gold standard in Branson, that it had only lost $250,000. And he said that achieved the greatest level of success he had ever seen. McCormick Place, losing tens of millions of dollars. But those things are done to impact the broader economy of a community. The multiplier effect, so yes, operationally it lost money. However, the value of spending within the community was just exponential. So that's why so many communities look at the overall economic impact that these kind of facilities have in their community. It's not necessarily directly how did it do operationally, but what are the impacts beyond that within the community. Working a little bit further, city will build and own the Music Enrichment Center, lease the operation of it to the nonprofit for a fee to be determined later when formal agreements are negotiated. Expected fee would be determined with an understanding of the immense value of the Surf Ballroom and the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum and what they bring to the city. With more varied space within the building, additional programming and services can be offered by the Music Enrichment Center, which will increase revenue opportunities. Also, things like a large gift shop would allow the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum to expand items that it sells and increase opportunity for rental space to the public. In terms of, if we talk just a little bit about the hotel itself, this is, again, there are, in Iowa, when we first started talking about the concept of the hotel, there are 5, I think, precedents in Iowa where the city or a county is an owner of a hotel. I think everyone's familiar with probably the Coralville example in the Marriott Hotel there. There's a couple others. Storm Lake built a hotel, and they own a hotel. and contract out for the operation management of that hotel. One was more recently done, so the parties that were entering into engagement letters have been involved in all of these projects. There was one more recently done by Polk County, the Hilton, and that's probably the most recent example of a public entity developing a hotel project. Now, ours is a little bit more of a unique spin on that, where the city would not be the owner of the hotel. The nonprofit would be the owner of the hotel. The city would be a financer of the hotel, and the revenue from the hotel would then pay the debt that the city would issue on bonds to pay off the hotel debt that we would issue. So kind of similar to like what we had done with One Vision when they were building the Timbercrest project. If you recall that, we were a conduit financier on that. It was around, I think the total project was about a $12 million project, and the city issued industrial revenue bonds, I think of $10 million for that project. That's done so that a party can capitalize on better market rates that are available through that process than the conventional banking market. So in this case, the city would issue a bond, and we'd be able to do that and take advantage of bank qualified tax exempt interest rates for this that would not be available to another party. So when you look at the pro forma, the projection for the hotel, when it's looked at with a debt borrowing of somewhere around 7% versus 3%, the numbers look a lot different. And so that helps the hotel project become much more financially feasible, sustainable for us to be able to do here. So, and I think because you have been such good financial stewards of the community for so long, there probably aren't as many communities that would be in a position to be able to do a project like this, but we have an abundance of borrowing capacity available. My only regret is we weren't doing this last October when we could have gotten it for probably about 1.8%, but we certainly have the wherewithal to be able to do this and not negatively impact our bonding capacity at all. So I think that's sometimes you take advantage of these opportunities, and I think we've been judicious in how we have spent the community's resources up to this point, so it's put us in a position to be able to do a project like this. Of course, the bonds themselves, I think I mentioned earlier, would be abated by revenue from the hotel, of course. Obviously, in Ms. Paytech's study, she had run the projections at a 6% interest rate, I think 6 or 6.5. So the hotel performed fine at that interest rate, and it will perform a lot better at an interest rate of 3%. So we'll also use, obviously, other sources of revenue to abate the debt that we would incur on that. Similar to like what we did with the Marriott Hotel, we would have a forgivable component to that, so probably forgive in that case. The Marriott, we forgive $100,000 a year for 12 years, so this would be a much longer term, so probably like $100,000 a year for 20 years, because it's just a more significant project. So when we look at where would we do a project like this, would we entertain this concept out on the interstate, for example? I would say no, only because I think what we're seeing in the Surf District today, some signs of disinvestment, some properties are looking worn and tired, not assets to our greatest man-made asset, the Surf Ballroom. So I think we are in a spot where we can strategically target this investment, and I would do that in the Surf District. I would not do that somewhere else, only here. So yeah, in terms of the Paytech study, predicted long-term success of the hotel project with just a 64% occupancy rate, it predicts that revenue, as noted previously, would be more than sufficient to cover the debt on the 45-room hotel. So I'm about halfway done. No, I'm kidding. I think I could wrap up there. I know Creighton wants to make a few comments, and Jeff Nicholas wants to make a few comments. I think Libby from the chamber would also like to speak, and I don't know if Chad came in, but I know he wanted to make a remark or two. But I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has them.
Any questions for Scott at this point? Thank you, Scott. Very well done. Jeff, would you like to talk?
I want to apologize. I'm a farmer by trade, and I'm a proud Iowa farmer, and this is how we dress. But when I'm up here talking about the surf ballroom, I shouldn't be dressed like that, like this. I apologize. I also consider it disrespectful to wear a hat in front of you and inside. You don't want me to take my hat off.
Thanks for the explanation.
Okay, all right. So anyway, Scott did a wonderful job, and the leadership he and the mayor and you all have done, not only in this project, but throughout the last 20 or 30 or 40 years, makes our community special. And I used to apologize for my motion, but I don't anymore, because this is the greatest place to live that we can in the United States of America. And I'm just feel so blessed to be able to wake up every morning and be here. And we could go on about the surf ballroom and all the accolades and all the things that makes it special, but it's really the community that does this, the Snyder family, the amount of blood, sweat, and tears that they have poured in to the entire community and into the surf ballroom. It would scare us all to know the amount of resources, financial and otherwise, that they have poured into this community. They're not doing it to make money. They're doing it to the community. Everybody on the nonprofit is our volunteers. We're all just doing this because of the town that we love. The very last thing I want to say, this is who I'm doing it for. We all have children and grandchildren, and this is why we're doing it. And I think she's the most beautiful girl in the world, but we all have children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews, and this is why, oopsie, this is not right. Who's that? Anyway, you know what I mean. We're not doing this for us. We're doing it for future generation. So they can have, the youth of our community can stand up here in 20 or 30 years and be as proud of this town.
That's right. Thanks, Jeff. Creighton?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Similar to Jeff, I'm going to tell a little bit of a story here, and Scott kind of covered everything else. So it was just over 2 years ago that I was living in the DC area. Of course, I worked for Marriott for about 10 years. We lived all over the US. We loved every place we lived. Very unique places. My wife and I often get asked the question, which was our favorite, and different places have different meanings to us, and we really loved all of them. But we had reached a time when our kids had gotten to the age where I didn't want to keep telling my daughter that we were moving and she was going to have to find new friends and that sort of thing. So it became really important for my wife and I to find a place that we would call home for a long time. And in that search, we had really narrowed it down to the Midwest, or Newport, Rhode Island, because we really love that place, but pretty much the Midwest. And so I was looking at jobs throughout the Midwest. We're both originally from Iowa, so of course, a little bit more emphasis on Iowa there. And I had reached out to Clear Lake here, and I think Scott responded in about 2.5 seconds, which was wonderful and I loved. But I didn't know much about Clear Lake. My sister lives in Mason City and has lived here for a few years, so I knew a little bit. But one of the things Scott insisted on is that I came and toured Clear Lake. And so I did that. And while I was here, the mayor and Scott took me on a tour of Clear Lake. I met with all of you as well. And one of the things they did was took me on a boat tour of the actual lake. And it was really because of that boat tour that I thought, wow, I want to live here. This is a special community. Obviously, many other things. The people were great. I got to meet with the city staff. Again, the people are really what make the community. But that emphasis on what our important assets are is huge, right? And that's what they're looking for in this Destination Iowa grant, more specifically in this placemaking grant, is what are we doing to leverage our assets so that we're bringing visitors and we're bringing residents, which is what happened with me, right? We were able to show off an asset that we have in this community, plenty of assets to show off here, but in that case, it was the lake. And even because of that, not only did we move here, and we've loved it the past 2 years, it seems crazy that it's been 2 years already, but my mom has moved here to Clear Lake from Cedar Rapids. She lived in Cedar Rapids her whole life. My in-laws have also now moved to the area. And so a lot of that goes back to this. What are we doing in Iowa to highlight what we have in Iowa, what we already have, and what are we doing to improve that for future residents, future visitors, and that is what this project does really well. Of course, we have the opportunity to leverage what we have in the surf ballroom. One quick story there is while this was happening, my mom sent me a picture of her and my dad in front of the surf ballroom. And my dad passed away a few years ago, so that was very special to me. I never knew that they came and visited it, and they did it just a few years ago. So again, another link there, but that was really special for me. So it's been an honor to work on this project and to learn more about the community here, learn more about what we have here that's very special, the people, the surf ballroom, the lake, and now we have an opportunity to bring a link back to those two. And in doing so, we'll have opportunities also as we talk about adding a hotel to the area. We give people the opportunity not only to make day trips up here, but they're going to spend now a few more days. We, of course, have an excellent, attractive community for VRBOs right now, and part of that is because we don't have enough hotel rooms. And so when we put more of those hotel rooms in place, we'll give more visitors an option to come here and stay here for longer times and, of course, spend money here. One other thing, of course, that was very attractive when I was coming to this community is the great financials. And again, I would like to thank the mayor, Scott, the council, of course, past councils, past mayors, Linda, who was here for a long time, and really great stewards of the finances here. And it's because of that that we're able to even look at a project of this magnitude and complete a project of this magnitude, which will only lead to further successes in the future. So again, thank all of you, and thank you, of course, to Scott for bringing me here and allowing me to be on this project. It's meant a great deal to me.
Libby? Charge of Tourism, Clear Lake Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Libby.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. On behalf of the Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, its members, and staff, I would like to offer our support for Clear Lake's application to the Iowa Economic Development Authority for a creative placemaking grant. Not only is the Surf Ballroom and Museum an American cultural icon, but also a global icon. Thousands of music enthusiasts from around the world make the trek to Clear Lake, Iowa to experience this National Historic Landmark every year. It has been exciting to watch and participate in the planning process for the Surf District improvements, and we are anxious to see this project move forward. These improvements will build upon Clear Lake's already excellent tourism reputation and amplify the Surf Ballroom's rich music and entertainment legacy. From its beginning, the Surf Ballroom was known as a must-play venue for artists. In the 50s, the ballroom became an integral part of the rock and roll revolution. Famous musicians were drawn to the surf, including the Winter Dance Party on February 2nd, 1959, featuring Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, J.P. the Big Bopper Richardson, among others. And while that fateful night made a lasting mark on the Surf Ballroom, the community made a commitment to honor Buddy, Richie, and J.P.'s legacies by keeping the music alive. Since then, the ballroom has been restored to its original glory and continues to attract top talent because of its rich history and commitment to seeing the music live on. As this project moves forward, we welcome the opportunity to continue working with you and the project team to see if there are additional ways the Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce can support the Surf District Plan implementation. Thank you.
Well done, thank you. Chad Schreck, CEO, North Iowa Corridor. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, for the opportunity to just offer our enthusiastic support from the North Iowa Corridor for this project. You guys said it so well. Scott stole almost every single talking point I had in that soliloquy, but it was brilliant, and I appreciate that, so I don't have to say too much. But just one of the things that I was excited about is looking at the bullet points that they're looking for in this program. And from our perspective, the proposal must enhance the potential for the successful recruitment and retention of people to live and work in the state. And you look at the number of people that are attracted to the surf, to the lake, to this community already, and the way that this is going to amplify, as the chamber said, those assets that are already here. One of these things was also building on the unique assets in our community. This does that in spades. And as Scott said many times, some of the disinvestment, some of the, I don't want to say blight, but some of the areas that aren't as attractive as we know Clear Lake truly is. This is going to bring to where they belong and where our community deserves. You're going to have people see that, they come, they visit for one thing. The odds of them moving here go up profoundly. I mean, it's proven time and time again that people that visit a community are much more likely to move there. If they, like Clayton said, if he had never come here, if he hadn't seen it, I appreciate Scott doing that, because if you don't see it, you don't get to experience it, you don't understand what makes this place special. So I did not get the boat tour. You weren't supposed to. I don't know how to feel about that, but yeah. So that maybe one day. But no, I think that when we can show those things off and continue to amplify them, not to be afraid, not to make these bold moves, to really build up what we've got, these unique assets that nobody else has in the state or the country. The leadership in this community is just second to none. You guys do a phenomenal job. It's a pleasure to work with everybody and be a part of this community. I came here it'll be 8 years in November, and it was a 3-year plan, probably 3 to 5 years in my profession, right? And I've had many calls and many said thanks but no thanks opportunities, because where else do you want to raise your family? And it's similar to Creighton, right? You have a young family, I don't know why you'd want to be anywhere else. So we got something we can't take for granted. I appreciate you guys investing in it and continue to make it a really special place. So thanks.
Chad. I have a few comments here. I believe that tonight, we, as the Clear Lake City Council, shall make one of the most important and positive decisions regarding the Surf District in the history of Clear Lake. That is approving the 2 resolutions and 2 professional engagement letters that we have in front of us regarding the Surf District Destination Iowa Project Grant application, which is due at the State of Iowa Economic Development Office this Friday. The city received that grant application 70 days ago. Needless to say, in that amount of time, much work has taken place under the direction of Scott Flory, as he assembled the best possible team. This team worked extremely hard over this relatively short time. This team consisted of representatives of RDG, our Chamber of Commerce, the North Iowa Corridor, the nonprofit 501c3, a legal representative, a financial representative, city staff members, and the grant writers. Many times they worked separately, and then they all came together as a group to develop this transformational project. We know this will take bold city government initiative to make this project happen. This has been said before, but that which is eligible in the SURF district for grant funding are the Enhanced Music Enrichment Center, Buddy Holly Place streetscape enhancements, and gateway features. In addition, although not eligible for grant funding, a new reimagined Oaks Boutique Hotel, which represents a very necessary level of private investment and development required, excuse me, to leverage state grant funding for other aspects of the project. Therefore, Council, our verbal support and initiative is now, as well as in the future, very critical for the success of the SURF District Destination Iowa project. Thank you, Scott, for your expertise in coordinating the SURF District Destination Iowa team process. Council and citizens, it is now time to trust the process in regard to pursuing the Iowa Surf District Destination Iowa Project Grant. Thank you. Other council people?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have something to say, and I guarantee it won't be quite that long. And Scott, definitely you. We have 6 minutes to go here.
They still got pizza, Casey's. You're
Yeah,
right.
I understand. As we all know, Clear Lake has many wonderful resources and assets and opportunities for a great quality of life here, as Creighton has told us about, which draws people to not only visit, but to move into our community. Just to name a few, of course, naturally the lake. Without the lake, where would we be? And its associated beaches. Our town and surrounding businesses that are associated with many events throughout the spring, summer, fall, and ending at the end of the year with a Christmas parade. Our restored Central Park seawall, which is presently up for national recognition. Lastly, we have the Surf Ballroom, which has been recognized nationally and I believe is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I honestly did not realize what the Surf Ballroom meant to this community until about the year 2014. It was pointed out at that time, prior to COVID, that the surf brought in approximately $5 million to our community for everybody. That's quite a bit of money to bring in one entity. Now has come the time to expand the horizon of the Surf District, which has already begun with 2 new established restaurants and a historic music center. The new horizon for the Surf District has now grown broader and closer to reality for the future of our community. At this point in time, I put my full support behind the Surf District projects and its wonderful vision. Thank you.
Well done.
I'm going to go second, and I'm going to beat that for sure. I'm a man of simple means sometimes, but I have to share a few of my little tidbits as well. I've got Creighton beat because since I moved here in 2001, about 30 of my family has followed. So we have done our part in growing the community, very happy to live here. We feel immensely blessed to live here because of all the amenities and things that we have to enjoy in. I have to also speak to Gettysburg because as I grew up on the East Coast in Pennsylvania, I went to Gettysburg as my field trip in the 5th grade. And so my kids have grown up here going to the surf as their field trip. And it's just neat to be able to be here and have those memories created for our family. Thank you to the Snyder family. You guys have done so much for this community. I was actually in the process of renting an apartment the other day, and there were so many good things said that I haven't had an opportunity to meet you myself personally, but I feel connected. And the things they said was shared in a way that reminds me of how special you are to the community, and your commitment and dedication and your generosity. It's been awesome, and we thank you.
Thank you.
I can probably beat you, but in the sense of time and the risk of repeating every point that has been made tonight, I do want to thank the Snyder family. There's a vision there, and you've kept to it, and your stewardship, unbelievable. And the North Iowa Cultural Center Board of Directors, thank you. This escalated pretty quickly. I asked Scott tonight when we first met, and he said June 20th, July, yeah. Wow. That, like I've said before, I'm not a very creative person, but this is a project that will definitely transform Clear Lake and really turn this into a surf district. And as far as no-brainers go, I'd say this is it. So thank you all involved.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And I want to say I appreciate everybody's comments. It's a wonderful, exciting evening to be here, and really appreciate the presentations and the commentary. I want to thank everyone for coming, and just to echo everyone's comments, really appreciate that and all your contributions here. I was going to say, when I think about, about future economic development in Clear Lake, I think we've got like three major significant centers of gravity that are pivotal for our future growth. First, as Scott alluded to earlier, the Courtway Park development out on the east side of the freeway, which is anchored by that very successful Fairfield Inn project, and we see the multiplier effects there from that. I think secondly, the Emerald Edge development on the west side of the freeway there is another important area that we're involved in and that we can develop for many years. But the third one is the jewel in the crown, and that is the surf district, anchored by the historic surf ballroom and the focus of our agenda tonight. And again, I really appreciate the investment that the Snyder family has made over the years in preserving that. And again, I think it's just a tremendously exciting vision that the plan that has been laid out creates to renovate that surf district. It's a dream for our community. As Scott mentioned, the district itself is in need of significant injection of both private and public investment in order to make that dream come true. The decision to apply for the Destination Iowa grant is a unique opportunity to partner with the state to catalyze that effort. I agree, it's a truly transformational project, and I enthusiastically support the steps we're taking here tonight to advance it by applying for this grant. So again, I would also like to thank our leadership team and the partners in this process who spent a great deal of time and effort to make this happen on a very, very short timeline. So with a great deal of gratitude for you, Scott, Creighton, the North Iowa Cultural Center Board, and many others. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're on, Mike.
It's the one you've been waiting for. First of all, I have to mention that I'm glad they got expanding MEC into that document, because those are my initials. And this was a good lead into my first comment here. So, and I'd be remiss if I didn't get a little history in there, so please bear with me. But some of it will be entertaining, so hang in there. Communities, like people, are either growing or sliding backwards. Many challenges affect the direction, but it's never possible without great effort to move forward. There are hundreds of small communities in Iowa. 60 years ago, most were prosperous. Today, many struggle, but some continue to grow. And some of the things involved in this growth are the great leadership and the great vision we've seen from many of the folks in this room. And I think a new commitment to more of a regional approach to our North Iowa area. The community working with Mason City, working with Cerro Gordo County, working with the EDC, and trying to work with our leaders down in Des Moines. And all of these things can bring about some great success with the right approach. And I definitely think this project has demonstrated the right approach. As far as our own community, I think we'd be a little remiss also not to point to some of the transformations that preceded all of this. When I was quite young, and even when a few of these people in that front row over there were a little younger, maybe just on the verge here, but 7th Avenue North and North Shore Drive was Highway 18, and that went right by the surf parking lot and the old lighthouse and some other wonderful things. But there was a thriving business community along that byway, and there's some reminiscences of that still left, but many of them are rundown buildings. But when I was young, there were grocery stores, gas stations, all kinds of exciting things along 7th Avenue North and North Shore Drive. But we moved on to the new Highway 18, and then all of a sudden a whole new business community out there. And we've seen a lot of things come and go out there also. For example, the Barrel Drive-In, once immensely popular, and the infamous Pier 18, and various things like that. We won't go into any detail there. But and then I-35 showed up. And from what I understand, we can throw a lot of thanks in the direction of one Tom Jolas for working really hard to make sure that didn't follow Highway 69 up through Garner and bent over toward Highway 65 and right through Clear Lake. And that didn't hurt us at all. I mean, that's another big thing going on. And currently, we have a lot of work going on out at the airport, and that's going to be a wonderful thing too. And as far as our business, look around town. The previous council and folks and the Snyder family really getting that industrial park out there going. If that wasn't shovel-ready, McKesson wouldn't be here, and many of those other things wouldn't be here. So that was huge. And as mentioned in Scott's comment a little recent, the Emerald Courtway Park, Emerald Edge, all of these bringing about new businesses. And without new businesses, it's very difficult to have enough jobs to keep everyone going. We've had support for new housing projects, some well underway, some completed, some being planned. But, you know, once again, I feel real positive that the city has been involved in trying to do some of these things. We've had to reinvent downtown Clear Lake. At one point, it was a farm community. You could come to town on Saturday night, and you could go to the hardware store, and maybe the dad would duck into the bar, and the women would shop in the clothing stores or the Moeller's clothing and get some things for the kids and different things like that. Well, it doesn't work so much anymore with big boxes and online shopping, but we don't have a storefront in downtown Clear Lake that's empty. And you got to look at that, and there's some reasons for it. And I've been sitting here watching some of these folks make that happen, and that's a really positive thing. And we've got some new rec facilities. How many communities our size have a rec center like that thing out there? We've got a new outdoor rec area that is really nice, and we're going to have one of the first everyone plays playgrounds in the state pretty quick. We got that bid going. Once again, ironically, the Snyder family is involved in a way with that. You know, we've got a lot of growing opportunities to grow Clear Lake, and that's what we're all about. And, you know, we've heard a lot of great comments, and when I used to travel with my kids, they would just get embarrassed at how their dad talked about Clear Lake to anybody that would listen all over America. But it was coming from my heart like it came from Jeff's heart tonight. Just a couple last comments. It takes a village to not remain a static village. And that's what we've got here in Clear Lake. We had such a huge input in this project with people from all walks of life and all kinds of different people that are very interested in Clear Lake, just as we did with the playground. I mean, these are the kind of things not every community in Iowa or anywhere else can muster people to get involved with and jump in there and do the dirty work. Well, Scott got to do a lot of that, but that's what we pay him the big bucks for. And besides, he's got to have something positive in his life because he's a Detroit Lion fan. This project can continue to move Clear Lake into an important leadership and actually keep us in an important leadership position in North Iowa. And one final comment. This might actually be the second holy cow.
Both in that area. I do have to point out that I have heard the stories about your cross-country travels from your son, and they're not quite as good as you want to make them out to be. I remember one about him being left in a car all night in a rainstorm. And I like to go in the clothing store myself.
Well
I
done,
asked him why he was wearing his funeral suit tonight.
Well done, gentlemen, well done. Well, we've got 4 motions here to get through. Here we go. Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2271, a resolution to approve submittal of an application for the Iowa Economic Development Authority Creative Placemaking Program. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved by Gary, seconded by Mark, that we approve Resolution 2271. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Mark?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
And Dana?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Resolution 2271 is duly adopted. Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2272, a resolution approving a letter of intent and confirming support of Surf District placemaking grant application to be filed by the city and the North Iowa Cultural Center and Museum with the Iowa Economic Development Authority. Motion, please.
So offered.
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Bennett, that we approve Resolution 2272. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Mike?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
And Mark?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0, and Resolution 2272 is duly adopted. Now entertain a motion to approve an engagement letter with Dorsey and Whitney for legal services for the Surf District Creative Placemaking Project. Motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Dana, seconded by Mark, that we approve the engagement letter with Dorsey and Whitney. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Now entertain a motion to approve engagement letter with Piper Sandler for professional financial consulting services related to the Surf District Creative Placemaking Project.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Gary, seconded by Mike, that we approve the engagement letter with Piper Sandler. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all of you who are here tonight. We really appreciate the support. Kathy, Ron, Paul, Maureen, the glue of the surf right there. And Chelsea, Kathy, Dale, Appreciate everything. Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
So offered.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.